Hi, I'm Keegan. Welcome to GM Talks. I'm joined with my lovely assistant, Brennan, and we are on our fan Discord. Anyone who is on our Discord will sometimes be allowed to join occasionally for our GM Talks, and we are joined with Zero. He jumped onto the Discord when he found out about our upcoming Werewolf the Apocalypse joining contest, and yeah.
I shamelessly joined, I'm not going to lie. But it's very
Shamelessly.
nice to be here.
Yeah. I mean, nothing wrong with shamelessly joining, man.
I would just like to state for the record that I've definitely mentioned this before. I've never actually listened to your games or podcasts, but as soon as I heard that there was a Werewolf the Apocalypse game happening, I was like, ooh, I want to play.
That's
So
fair.
my interest, it comes purely from a roleplay perspective.
Oh, I
just wanna
understand.
play, man.
Oh no, and I saw your thing where it's like, I don't want to be a famous streamer. I'm like, oh, don't worry, you won't be with ours. We've got like 100 people subscribed at most on YouTube and like 18 on Podbean, so don't worry.
I
You'll
mean,
be a doubles.
that's weird to me
You'll
because
be a,
like I have like messages like in my Facebook from like like memes I've shared from of your page from like 3 years ago. So I'm like,
that's impressive.
I've been here.
I don't think we've been around for 3 years. I think we're coming up on year,
Like a year?
1.5. Yeah.
I definitely had a year. Okay,
That's fair.
Certainly feels like 3.
Yes. Given the theme of this episode of gaming in the new year, hopefully your games won't feel like
yeah, that was all in BC, as I like to call it, before Corona. So that doesn't count.
Yeah.
There you go.
There you go.
This year has been like the hyperbolic time chamber, man.
Oh man. But yeah, no, we've had a couple. I mean, I've gotten Travis Legg, Neil Price, and Matthew Dawkins on GM Talks for a couple things, mostly for projects they're doing. But we like to talk around. We like to talk to people who aren't famous game designers, because a lot of people who just run games or play games on the regular have things of value on how they run their games that other people could learn from, right?
Oh, well, if you want to talk about filthy homebrew heretics, I'm your man.
Oh, there you go.
Woo!
And you were talking briefly before we started recording about how you guys do a modified D20 for, World of Darkness.
So I've been playing World of Darkness for like 10, I think 10 years now, because I just turned 28 in December, so. And I've been playing since I was 18. So yeah, 10 years I've been playing World of Darkness, and this entire time we've just played a modified D20 system, because I think that no offense to White Wolf or anyone like that, I just think that the dice pool system of like successes is, how should we say this, complicated. It's a little less intrinsic than just rolling a D20 system, right? So what we do is we just take our attribute and skill, like say you have a 3 in strength and a 2 in brawl, and you're rolling to brawl against someone. You take your 3 plus 2, add it to a D20 roll. Say you got 15 plus 5, that's a net 20. That's just that's how we do it.
That makes sense.
And damage has always just been what we call realistic roleplay damage, which is if you're shot in the leg, act like you've been shot in the leg. Consider what that would be like. I don't know how someone is supposed to roleplay 1 point of damage to the knee.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't get it.
No, I gotcha. Now, I actually like the die pool system, but that's because, especially when I started running the game, there was a good visual representation. The better you were, you could see your die pool grow, and I've noticed a lot with new players that's very visual, and thus gets them to understand the mechanics a bit better, in my experience at least. And I think die pools are typically a little less swingy than a D20, which is why I've always liked that. But both are blown out of the water with deep percentile, like Call of Cthulhu.
I like percentile die.
Oh yeah, that one's super simple.
Yeah.
Call of Cthulhu is my number one teaching game because of it.
I don't
Did
think
you
I've
always
ever
play
actually-
with
I'm sorry, go
Zero?
ahead.
Did you always play with D20 or
Yeah.
did you start on?
Yeah, I started off on 3.5 D&D, and then from there we went to Pathfinder, which is, if anyone knows, is just like cleaner 3.5 or 3.75 as some call it. And I highly recommend Pathfinder to everybody. Um, and then from there we wanted to get into the more, I guess like more futuristic, modern kind of games and whatnot. And World of Darkness was just like the obvious pick. And I had a friend who'd played it and got me into it. So first it started with Vampire the Masquerade, and I was running games and kind of letting everybody know, like, this is Vampire, but like there's also werewolves and everything else. And like I started to slowly bleed that stuff in, and eventually we've just now played games where like it's just mixed World of Darkness. If you come to me and you said, I've read the Wraith book, I want to play a Wraith, and I say I have a bunch of werewolves, that sounds cool. I've never really considered that the growing dice pool thing, like you said. That's pretty cool.
It's something I've noticed. It's a visual thing. And to be fair, I actually did Chronicles of Darkness. Then when I started playing it, New World of Darkness. And that's a little more intuitive too, but just because what you have to roll on the die is constant. And the harder something is, the less dice you get. That's it.
That seems to make more sense to me. Like, what is the success? Is it just 5?
It's an 8.
8?
So an 8 or higher, but 10s explode. So whenever you roll 10s, you keep rolling. And if it's the 10 again, you keep rolling until you stop getting 10s.
See, that's cool. That's literally what I was just about to mention about Legend of the Five Rings.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Legend LD5R. Anyway, Legend of the Five Rings is like a Eastern samurai kind of game, right? That some of my friends in Greece are playing, and they have an exploding dice system. So if you roll, I think it's a D10, and if you roll a 10, it explodes, and you just keep rolling it. It also has like a cool system that kind of reminiscent of Wraith, where they have what they call their mask, and like after like certain amount of, I guess, failures, your mask slips and you kind of go into like, like your anime crazy mode, if you will.
Okay.
I don't know how else to explain it.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. One thing I don't like about the World of Darkness dice is I haven't house ruled it out of this game because we've just been playing and it's not really great to change rules on the fly, is the higher your die pool, there is sometimes a greater chance of botching because if you roll 0 successes, rules is written, you roll a 1, you botch, which makes sense, right?
Right.
But as difficulty goes up, you actually see a kind of a weird kind of curve basically of where botches start to go up and successes start to go down, which can get a little frustrating for folk. And why I like the Chronicles one is, as I had mentioned, you add or subtract dice to your base pool depending on how easy or hard something is. And if the difficulty is so high, your die pool is dropped to 0, what you do is you roll a single D10. If it's a 10, you succeed and it still explodes, but that's it. It only succeeds on a 10. And if you roll a 1, then you botch.
Man, that's so complicated.
I don't think so.
I mean, it makes sense. Like I'm not saying that. It's just, man, what if you don't have all the dice for that?
I mean, it's just a one die, right? Like most pools don't get above 10 dice.
But that's like 10d10.
Yeah, I mean, most people are dice goblins, so I just assume people have those lying around.
True. Yeah, you have to always consider the fact that everyone likes the shiny math rocks that go click clack.
Yep.
Yeah, that's been a relatively easy hurdle to jump, but one I haven't gone through until recently, where you have a set like for D&D, you have your 20, your 12, your 10, your 6s, your 8s, and as easy as asking at a game store, like, do you guys just have a bunch of D10s? He's like, you're playing more World of Darkness, aren't you? Like, yeah. Can I get 30?
Oh, I'm sorry. You're an Exalted player.
I've never played Exalted.
I did a lot of second edition. I liked second edition, but you had to do a whole lot of hand waving because the mechanics broke down real fucking quick as you gained even just a little bit of experience.
Anytime I have second edition, I always think D&D second edition, so my mind immediately goes to THAC0,
Fair.
which
Oh, yeah.
The Exalted system is also a die pool system, obviously. They have the nice thing where ones don't subtract from successes.
well,
So that's nice. And it's always a 7 or higher that counts as a success. And 10s always count as 2 successes. But what you do is you'd add your attribute and ability together, get your pool. Since Exalted are so crazy strong, there's a very good chance that that's a 10 die pool if it's something you're good at. And then you could also have a specialty in something, and that would you could have a +3 specialty, which could add 3 dice to your pool. Then most Solars had something they called an excellency, where you could spend 1 point of what's called essence for 1 die. And so you could up to a maximum of your ability plus attribute for that excellency. So you could get potentially 23 dice just starting in the game for a single roll. And if you wanted to get real crazy, you could spend a point of willpower and channel your virtue through it. And if you had a virtue is rated between 1 and 5, so if you had a 5 dot in that virtue, you'd actually get up to 28 dice.
wow.
Yeah, Exalted is, I would say, from an outside perspective, way more complicated than World of Darkness in any edition.
Oh man, there's some stuff though, like, hey, roll these dice, see if you convert an entire crowd to your religion about you. Done.
There's definitely a level of power fantasy, at least in my
Bard
limited
plays
experience with
ones-
Exalted.
The bard plays one song, one guy just stands up. Just want to say, the old gods are dead. All hail the new gods.
Right, basically. There was a flying city once, and Brennan spent 3 motes of essence out of like his 50, which allowed him to jump the distance needed with no successes needed and land perfectly on a root that was hanging off of it and balance perfectly. And one of the characters who did not have those charms leaps, grabs his struggling like, this is so unfair!
How am I supposed to win this?
He was
great.
like a big tanky character. He spent like 3 hours climbing the tower. I got up in like 15 minutes. It was
Have
silly.
you guys ever decided to play a character that, like, say, like you have a character from your World of Darkness game, right? Have you ever decided, like, I like this character so much, I'm gonna play him in my D&D game?
Ooh.
I really haven't, but that's because I mainly run games.
Oh, man.
I haven't had that in World, but it sounds like you're coming from a place with a story.
What? I always have a story. I have one character who's like my favorite, which, like, I mean, I've received some, critiques from him in the past, but, he's my favorite character, and, I started him off in D&D, right? And he was a half vampire, right? And, like, take this with all the edge that is intended. His name is Vincent Van Blade. He is like a half vampire, wears a red cape. Yeah, he is the knight. Like, I get to do some awesome Batman stuff with him. He's got like a silver claw embedded into his arm, right? And I love him so much that, like, I played him in D&D for so long that when we all started playing World of Darkness, I was like, guys, I'm not gonna not play my half vampire in a World of Darkness.
That sounds so excellent.
And, like, he's my favorite character, and, like, I have like entire, like, stories and profiles written out about him. Like, he has like, it's a certain mental neurological condition where you just don't feel things as strongly as other people do. Like, all your emotions are basically super numbed. And he kind of has that, so that's why he kind of talks in like a dull, uninterested kind of way. But I've pulled off like the sickest kills with him, man. And, like, every single time I get to play him, it's just a matter of, like, how savagely can I kill this guy? And usually the answer is pretty bad.
Nice.
That reminds me, like, just your description reminds me of like Hellsing or like Blade 1.
Another comparison I get a lot is Vincent Valentine. which I could kind of see. It was an unintentional kind of like similarity, but then like someone showed me, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I can see it now. I'm like, yeah, basically, just like that. But oh, he's got like a razor chain that's attached to his claw, and I have used that to pull off some of the most interesting kills, like turning it into a noose and then like lowering it over someone's neck and then jumping off a branch so it like lifts them up and guillotines them while taking their head off. Like,
Jeez.
That's why I play D&D, so I can get in like some cool kills that you can talk about like their anime fights.
Vincent Van Blade.
Vincent Van Blade, all the
man.
edge.
Whew,
That is
that's... So with 2020 being kind of a rough decade, what kind of things did you guys do in 2020 that you kind of want to bring out or do a little more of in 2021 with your games, whether that's characters or games you've run?
So me and my brother have I've been talking a lot. Do you want to go ahead, man? Beefy?
Oh, you go for it, Zero. You're the guest.
Oh, wow. This is so special. It's like being on Joe Rogan, but for nerds.
Yay.
I also made a kitsune.
All right. Nice. We've been exploring a lot of morality questions in our werewolf game, which has been kind of fun.
Such as?
A lot of it is the where do you leave the buck, so to speak, with corporate greed and and like the damage it does. Like they did a lot of investigation in Magadon, and a lot of the scientists and things like that, they thought they were just making super soldiers for the military, and that it was completely kosher, and that the people they were testing it on were prisoners. So a lot of them thought it was okay within the legal structure, and that it was just a job.
Okay?
Well, I mean, people do that all the time.
That doesn't make it okay.
True. Other ones were that they were boiling down Banes, and they were creating basically this sleeper cell, basically, where some of the pills had Banes in them, but the Banes wouldn't activate without a separate trigger, and that separate trigger was being pumped in antibiotics in cattle. So O'Toley's was opening up new restaurants throughout the developing world to get them food, and Magadon was pumping drugs there to help ease the sick. And so the people who were doing it thought they were doing the right thing. What they didn't know was that those boiled down Banes could activate and create an army of Fomori. But they were still compliant in it, and they did still see that they were going to be profiting off of the misery of these people and these poor people. But they thought they were still helping and were debating whether the ends justified the means. Are they correct? Should they be ripped asunder?
Absolutely not. No, I want to join this game so bad just so I can come in as an Aru who says, "What have you guys been doing? How have you not raised yet?"
The other one was they had a whole thing with DNA. If you were interested, there's a whole mini thing with our Thurge, because he had a work conflict for a while, so he was out of the game. And we decided to explain him being away and that his character was on a spiritual quest. And so he did a spiritual quest. We do all the spiritual quest stuff. He ends up doing his rank 2 challenge, and it's a one-on-one game. And then he gets captured by DNA. And DNA thinks he's a person who has this genetic disease, and that this genetic disease makes him a threat to himself and others because of the frenzy. And so they're trying to cure him, and they're trying to get a psychological profile of him, and they're trying to get him to understand there's nothing mythical about him, nor is there any sort of mythical greater purpose to the Garu's sort of mission. And so it becomes the question of, these people clearly think they're doing the right thing, and where they're coming from because of the information they have, it could be considered a righteous or good choice. How many people do you kill? Is it worth it? Because they are, in a sense, still torturing people mentally and physically in trying to find a quote-unquote cure for something they view as the big bad against humanity.
But that's just human. See, you're making me want to get in character with this, and I like part of me is screaming wherever it dwells, wherever it breeds. I don't care what use you think you have for a Bane or Fomori.
Oh no, that part that's DNA. DNA is a Weaver thing. They're just trying to cure werewolves.
Okay, look, I don't care what they think. You can't cure werewolves. We're a gift from Gaia.
They don't believe in Gaia. That's just superstition.
I don't care what they believe in. You know what? No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm very passionate when it comes to roleplay, so I'm just immediately like, I don't care what they believe in. You know what they can learn how to believe in? That I have teeth and claws, and they don't. No.
They have. There is a conversation in character between another character, because during the rescue mission goes to shit, and the Arun got captured. And they have this discussion.
You gotta give up a werewolf card if you're the Arun and get captured.
Oh no, DNA knows how to deal with werewolves, at least on accidental infiltrations.
Have you heard of claw caps?
I have not.
These were like a Pentex weapon that got made up. It's in one of the books of Bane and Fomori.
Okay. Probably Book of the Worm.
And basically, yeah. And basically, they're like metal claws that like kind of like finger gauntlets that go over the claws of Farah, usually black spiral dancers, and they have like explosive tips that when they like claw into something, they like shoot into you and then explode.
Oh.
And they're like, yeah, they're made of silver, of course. And yeah, they're really, really mean.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure why I'm telling you that now.
DNA has drugs that are powerful enough to start knocking out a Krynos werewolf.
Ooh.
And so she popped because the Weaver spirits believed this was a place where because the facility was meant to house werewolves, all the Weaver spirits wanted all werewolves on the premises to get captured, because that is the purpose of the facility, to capture werewolves, and to deviate from that is to break the pattern. And so they tried infiltrating in the Umbra, and they got charged by several hunter spiders, several pattern spiders, things like that. So these walls of spiders are coming after them, but they're pushing them to one spot where the gauntlet is actually weaker. The spiders have intentionally left it weaker. So they corralled her over there. She passes into the Umbra, and she's in the training zone where everyone's equipped with their weapons.
Oh, man.
And then they just like, all right, cap, and unconscious.
Out of the frying pan into the fire.
Mm-hmm.
So what have you been doing to your poor players, man?
Oh, man. Emotionally wreck them.
In a good way.
In a good way. Yeah. The running joke between me and Sam, who play Cora, is her favorite character is the Elder of the Sept. And the running joke is he going to die this session, Sam? Is he?
It's like being a Jedi Master. It's literally the most dangerous job, because to successfully train your Padawan, you have to die.
Yeah. There's so many things, and then it's just like, oh, he's being a real dick. Is he going to fall to the spiral, Sam?
I have a question.
Yes.
What is everybody's tribe in the...
So we actually have 2 separate packs currently.
Cool.
One pack, which is the original pack, is Fomori's Bane, and that's 2 Children of Gaia and a Get of Fenris.
All right, I was gonna say, now that I found out you have 2 Children of Gaia, it kind of makes sense why you guys haven't gone in there and raged.
And then the other pack was a Fianna. She just passed and died in the last session.
No!
Which is why the contest happened.
Pour one out for the homies.
She had to leave due to the fact that she's in the UK. The time zone difference and staying up till 4 a.m. her time to play the game was getting to be a bit much. So she had to drop. So we came up with a way to kill her character, and that'll actually be how we introduce whoever wins. There'll be a youngin from the sept that fell that she went to and got killed at. And then you have a Silent Strider and a Stargazer.
So I know very little about the Silent Strider tribe. That one I'm drawing a blank on.
Those are the ones who follow Owl. They're kind of the messengers usually. They have a lot of gifts that increase their speed and things like that. Their tribe in the ancient days defeated an ancient vampire who cursed them and cut them off from all their ancestor spirits and drove them from the lands of Egypt. So they cannot, they can't stay within the bounds of Egypt, or else bad things happen.
What a jerk.
Yeah. So that's the makeup.
I should have asked earlier. Am I supposed to try to keep my language as clean as possible? I wasn't aware.
Oh no, especially for the werewolf game.
Oh, okay. Thank God. I was like, I'm sorry. I cussed like a sailor, man.
Oh no, that's fine. Listen to the last episode; you'll get a good idea. That's the one where we had technical difficulties, and the first half is gone, so it's only an hour-long listen.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard about that.
That was a little grumpy. I think
Have you ever ran a mixed fare game?
I haven't, especially because every time I end up picking up Werewolf, my group are usually people who are just completely new to the setting. So instead of dropping several different Pharaoh cultures on them,
I will, man. I do that. I'll be like, all right, so this is werewolf. These are all the breeds, or you could just be a werewolf.
Mm-hmm. So I've always found, at least when I do, because I've done that before, where I did a big info dump. Brennan was part of that game. It's a huge info dump on the werewolves, their culture, things like that. And around the second or third paragraph, your player's eyes start glazing over. And so they're not as engaged, and so they'll make sort of mistakes making their characters. So what I have done now historically for people in my games is, if we start and it's starting at the beginning, they make their characters without spending any of the bonus points or freebie points. They start off as just people who have just changed. They get their auspice and they get their breed. They don't get their tribe. And they are raised by the sept in an extended prelude that lasts, I think ours lasted three or four sessions, where throughout the session they're trained, they're learning, and things like that. And as they learn, they're allowed to spend their freebie points to increase dots here and there. And then we play through and run their rite of passage, where they get to pick their tribe. And I tell them to just pick purebreed, and if they pick purebreed wrong, they just get those, like if it's not the same tribe as their parents, after they've learned about the tribes, they just get refunded all those purebreed background points back to spend wherever they want it. And that's how I do it. And then they do their rite of totem, they find their totem, and then they're ready to go. And because they're learning all the lore and engaging with that lore in and out of character at the same time, I find that they get way more invested.
That is really cool. I really like that. That's a lot different than like just the you should know what your character is by now.
Yeah.
I mean, like I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, and like, if I have more experienced players, I'm more willing to give them more leeway to just pick. But I also have I discourage brand new players from picking Metis for the same reason, is that Metis know a lot about werewolf culture. So I'm just like, hey, I would prefer it if you didn't. If you're really, really drawn to this, sure, but you know, I'm gonna recommend this, and then ask them why they feel they want to play a Metis, especially if they're new, and then you work with them. But most of my new players don't play Metis. People who come back in, they'll play Metis on occasion now that they know the lore, so they're going to be a little more, immersed in it.
That was like our second big campaign. I played a Metis because I had played for almost 4 years before that as a Stargazer.
What is the advantage of playing a Metis? I mean, like I've always just looked at them as like the.
Oh, it's
I
a
mean,
role playing thing. A part of it is a role playing thing, but it is regenerate being able to regenerate in all your forms is a pretty nice gift. But on top of that, it's just a role playing thing. It gives you a chance to pick a certain flavor, get a different set of lists, maybe have a unique relation with the spirit world because metas have access to that a lot sooner than everyone else. So you're able to play around with that a little more. Play around with that theme of both worlds, but not in either. And you can that's a theme with all werewolves, but I think it's more of a theme regarding metis. And then you can create that dynamic where now you have a metis where the rest of the nation is kind of attacking them for being metis, and the pack being a family dynamic. You see them, try and defend them after they had no ability to defend them when they were pups.
That is really interesting. It kind of reminds me of the fact that I mentioned earlier that I made a Kitsune last year, and I'm still like anxious to play him.
Mm-hmm.
And if anyone has not read the Hengokai book, I suggest you do, and make sure you read all the way to the end, because that's where you'll find the Kitsune book. It's hidden, and it is possibly one of the most interesting views of the world of darkness from Farah eyes. They have what you would consider, their metis as well, but they don't have deformities. They're not treated any differently.
Mm-hmm.
But the interesting thing about Kitsune is that whenever one of them is born, there is a 9 out of 10 chance that one of their parents will die. And
yes.
It's like several different percentages of like what parent it'll be. My character is actually one of the most unfortunate, where both of his parents died.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, but I would love to see a metis game meet a Kitsune, just to like explain to him, like, especially one who's like new to the West, and then explain to him that like we are metis, and him just not grasping the concept of, like, I think that would be a fun thing.
I know they got a slight rewrite in 20th. Not a lot, but a little more, just to remove some of the Orientalisms that were present in Hengei Yokai. They actually did a little more researching, like, that's a little offensive. So they pulled that out and replaced it with something that makes a little more sense in werewolf cosmology.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. What book is that?
Changing Breeds, 20th anniversary.
Let me see if I have that book.
Because that one has just every single Changing Breeds stats and a brief history for every single Farah.
Is that in New World of Darkness?
No, it's in Werewolf 20th anniversary. I
don't know if I have the 20th anniversary Werewolf book.
Okay, that's the one we're running with. Some minor differences, like there's no dodge skill anymore. That got wrapped up in athletics.
What? No, that's fine. That makes more sense to me. I think it was silly that there's like athletics, dodge, brawl.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was also martial arts in some of them. Like.
Yep. Yep, that's the one.
I have Werewolf the Forsaken.
But we do 20th anniversary. I like it. The rules are a little more clean. Some things got balanced out a little better. Like Razor Claws is a little better in 20th Ann than it was in Revised or Second.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, Razor Claws are just... That was almost like a staple.
Yep. What it does now is it increases the damage of your claws by 1, but also decreases the difficulty by 1. So you have to roll a 5 or higher instead of a 6 or higher when you activate Razor Claws.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Oh.
But, I've done some things. I think going into the new year, for the podcast especially, is trying to introduce more of the supernatural elements and giving them a place to feel natural, because I've typically siloed in past games, with the exceptions here and there. Like the last game I ran with Brennan here, vampires played a lot more prominently. And I think there was a mage, and in this one, there's been a mage. They've finally gotten some vampires, but now there's also been the hintings of a Bastet, and there has definitely been a Goral, and a Nuisha.
That's cool.
And you play them rare, and I just want to get them to try and make sense. So I've actually been going back and rereading all the Changing Breed books from the older editions to snag ideas.
My favorite are the Korax.
I know. You had mentioned actually on the...
Yeah, no, I will shamelessly plug Korax. I am definitely like that person who like has picked the Korax as their favorite, and because of that, I believe everything that Korax say. And if you know anything about that, that is a bad idea.
Yep. I love the Ananasi for only one reason. They have the greatest combat maneuver out of any of the Changing Breeds.
Which would be...
You grapple someone, and then you explode into a human mass of spiders to swarm them.
I would challenge that.
I would...
Shroud. Level 1 gift. Greatest combat maneuver.
Just because it saved your ass several times doesn't mean it's the greatest combat.
Greatest.
I would argue... I mean, I guess against vampires, especially, the Korax have like a very high-level ability where they can make a sun in their hands that doesn't produce the heat, but it's just the light. And like, that to me is like the ultimate FU to the entire vampire world.
That's fair.
Like, as soon as I heard that, I was like, why aren't there Korax that are just like, I'm gonna be a vampire hunter now. I have the sun.
I mean, it's like Kiss of Helios, right? You explode in sunfire as a werewolf.
Yeah.
Actually, so I brought back Brennan's pack for the current game. So the pack I ran for the last werewolf game are now NPCs in this game, and Brendan comes back to reprise his role occasionally and works with me for dialogue for the recordings and things like that. And my brother was in that game. And he was a Silver Fang, and they got to rank 5 in that game, and Owl was their totem. So when he turned into Krynos and the Umbra, he had giant spiritual wings. His whole body turned to silver. He had a gift that made his clave ignite in fire, and he had Kiss of Helios, so his whole body ignited in fire. So he's this giant silvery avenging angel monstrosity.
It was awesome. Like, end battle, he didn't get taken down for ages.
I think I just fell in love a little bit. Do we have a poster of him I can hang up on my wall?
Right. I don't know. We should commission some art.
I am a shameless like lover of anything that is like over the top cool.
Brennan go ahead.
I was just gonna say I don't know if you guys have ever heard of the running rule of cool. But no, that is definitely a prominent feature in all of my games.
No, I think
if it's cool enough, it happens.
Liam's character in that game, the Avenging Angel, I think his damage record was like 33 or 36.
Something like that. It was like 36 dice of damage.
Oh,
it was
ouch.
Absolutely outrageous and fantastic.
And it was unsoakable for werewolves because it was a clave, thus silver.
Ooh.
The other one I liked is when Sean joined us briefly for that game. You heard about him, and we just tried to do the awkward introduction, and his character's a metis, and he has these curled ram horns, but also has the wings, so he flew over in Krynos and had the giant merit, so he was like a 15-foot tall wolfman monster.
You mean me?
Horns and wings?
With horns and wings, Brennan's character. And so Brennan flies over to Sean's character and goes, I've heard so much about you.
Man, talk about Werewolf the Apocalypse.
It was great. One of the other things, if you come across it, Zero, is if I either you as a player or if you're GMing, if your pack takes owl as their totem and you play up like falling from great heights and stuff in the Umbra, it just doesn't work because everybody flies, and it makes things really easy on that front at least.
Yeah.
Have are the Haken still in
Yes.
the 20s?
They're in the
Yeah,
core book. Yep.
Which one are the Haken?
They're the
Haken
Shadow Lords from the East.
They would find that term very offensive.
That's the best way to describe them.
That is how most people would describe them. I'm not gonna be like that, but like according to the Haken, they're not just Shadow Lords with codes. And like what's interesting, and I feel like was a like underplayed factor, is that they started talking about how because there aren't any more like roaming wild wolves in Japan anymore because they were all hunted mostly out in the Edo period. Is that there aren't as many Lupid-born werewolves as much, so that they're losing that kind of part of the wolf. But it didn't really say anything specific about how like that implemented in mechanics. And I think it would be interesting if like because of that the Haken don't have access to certain forms.
Yeah, that'd be an interesting way. What I know for a fact is in 20th at least, and I think they confirm it in revised as well, is that if the animal version of the were creature goes extinct, there will be no more were animals of that kind ever born after that time. So if you killed every last wolf, that generation of Garu are the last generation of Garu.
Yeah, I guess technically, yeah, because they can't breed with each other. I mean,
well, even with humans, yeah, no, it's it doesn't matter if even if a Hamid were to breed with a human kinfolk, it produces regular humans, not even kinfolk anymore. The spiritual side is destroyed.
Just because, yeah, the spirit is no longer there to.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's how the Kara went extinct, which are the were saber-tooths.
Oh, is that? I've also heard of the bunyip, which were were dingoes.
Were thylacines.
The what?
Oh,
Thylacines, yeah, the Tasmanian. It's the Tasmanian wolf or the Tasmanian tiger, which was a wolf-ish looking marsupial.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. Like, it doesn't make sense if they were dingoes.
Yeah.
Because I've heard that before too. I was like, it's got to be the Tasmanian tiger thing, right? That.
Yep, that's
had,
it.
Like the cool disappearing stripes on it and stuff. I watched a huge documentary on it when I was a kid.
Yeah, it's various things like that. So they like the Opus, which were were aurochses. They don't exist anymore. Also, because of the War of Rage and because there are no aurochs around, they've all been the aurochs got domesticated and went extinct.
The were oxes, right?
Yeah.
And so I see you're on a tangent. I hate to interrupt you, but also, just while I'm on the topic of the bunyip, have y'all heard of skinwalkers in the World of Darkness?
Oh yes.
Oh boy, have we!
They
were a big antagonist in our last game.
Oh, I'm so envious. I want to kill the one that I think is in my like headcanon of World of Darkness. I think that there's one in Australia that is the one that wiped out the bunyip and got a Krenos form.
Oh, that'd be pretty cool. Actually, I like that.
Like that's what made sense to me, is because like I've read some books that mentioned there was something about a skinwalker in Australia, and like then there was like another mention about how the bunyip were wiped out, and like no one's quite sure how, and like I drew the connections.
Okay.
There's so much stuff in the World of Darkness that is just so cool that you want to utilize in games, like just off the, like from the vampire side, the Cathedral of Flesh.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god, as soon as I read about that, man, I was like having horror wet dreams. Like I love horror, like really good horror, especially like things like The Thing. And like that just sounds like mwah, it was just beautiful. It's like a well-written SCP, man. Like it captures the imagination. And when I explain it to people, you can see the fear in their eyes. I have this one friend, Kate, and I love inviting her to World of Darkness games because she is what I like to call the straight man, right? She is not as desensitized to all of it as the rest of us, and she you can actually see she gets a little nervous and scared, and I explained the Cathedral of Flesh to her, and her one response was just, I do not like the Gore Church.
We had what was it? We had one that was a new person to. It was one of the earlier games actually, where it's like, all right, because it was the in-character learning sort of thing, and they were being trained by this Silverfang who has a lead pipe, and they're like, well, that's unnerving. Today we're going to learn about regeneration, and Cora goes, how are we going to learn about regeneration? Like this, and he just hits her in the knee and breaks it. And it was this huge way to just drive home how strength based this was. So, and it was an idea I actually got from the Werewolf the Apocalypse Storyteller's Handbook for Revised Edition, which is hands down, I think, still one of the best books I ever picked up for Werewolf, because it gives you ideas on how to introduce players into it, and that's how I derived my extended prelude method from, because they don't give you those exact steps. I extrapolated from that kind of idea. And so what you do is we did short 15, 30-minute sessions with them being just humans, starting to feel the first change coming. And they go through the first change. So it's the last 2 or 3 days of them just being human. And you do that. Then you get them all together so that they can form the pack. And you portray the werewolf society as being incredibly alien and brutal. And then when they come back, it all makes sense as they're all cheering them on and they see the worst of the worm.
Man, the worm can get pretty bad.
Welcome. Hi. We've just been rambling a bit.
Yay.
Sounded like it.
Yep.
How's it going, man?
I'm still the side of the dirt.
There you go.
Not a bad way to put it.
I'm glad that someone else is here now. I don't feel like I'm just taking up all the airwaves.
So Brenna, I know you've been dropped down to one game so far. Are there any games you really want to run now? I know that.
Oh hell. That's I might throw to the gallery one of my dream games, which it's all this next year and the fall years coming down is going to be dependent upon scheduling and time, but I desperately want a Three Kingdoms or Game of Thrones style struggle with armies and shit, and just the problem is getting players interested in that.
Are you going to utilize if it's online, are you going to utilize a map table where you can have Warhammer style armies and stuff?
Potentially, but I haven't bit the bullet as far as learning much of the online style. When I run games, it's through Discord only. I have one friend whose game I'm in now. She runs through Roll20, and I understand it a bit, but I look at it as learning another gaming system. It's extra rules, and one of the groups I run for is pretty casual, so I don't feel like foisting that on them. Plus, I'm also being stubborn about learning to use all the tools.
And
Roll20 can be a bit of a fight.
Yeah, I've used it before, and if you kind of understand it, it takes a little bit getting used to, but I mean at the same time, no one can compare to Theater of the Mind. You know what I mean?
A good one
I
I
use
heard.
it for Pathfinder, and it works great for that, seeing as it already has sheets baked in that work.
You missed it. We already did our shameless Pathfinder plug. It's been plugged.
Well, too bad I'm plugging it again. Anyway,
Again.
anything that it
That's just how
has a
good Pathfinder is, everybody.
Well, no, it didn't work well for Pathfinder First Edition because all of the other options don't exist for Roll20. So when you've got somebody that's got 3 different classes baked in to make one thing work, Roll20 goes, I don't know how this works.
Roll20 does not respect the Gestalt class.
Roll20 does not respect a lot of things.
It's-
So I have a question for the room. If I were to tell you all to take a tribe or breed and then make a character that breaks the mold of it, what would you do?
Ooh.
You know what? I would bring back HDMI. He was a Lupus Glasswalker Ragabash that I played that worked for the cable company.
That's fantastic.
I don't know if that technically breaks the mold of is what like. What I would think
I will.
about
I will.
that.
Let me go off the cuff. Then thinking, I would do a lupus-born Arun Geta Fenris, who strongly believes that self-discipline is the first step in defeating the worm, and physical strength is actually the secondary way of doing it. And so he still does combat, obviously, but he actually does a lot of things and has built up his expressions to do self-help lectures so that people steel themselves against temptation to prevent the worm from even taking hold, and then rends them apart if they don't follow his 12-step program.
I can
Man,
dig it.
that is a harsh 12 steps.
13th step is death.
Is the higher power in that step you, except that there is a higher power that will eat you?
Except there is a higher power, Gaia. And it can be any higher power, Gaia. And through this higher power, Gaia, you can overcome what's dragging you down, the worm.
I think I would do. I would just want to plug my brother here. He actually made a male Black Fury. And the way he does this is he's a Hamid born, and it's kind of like a special sect of the Black Furies that instead of giving up their male children, have decided to raise them, but raise them as they should be. But what they are is they're kind and they're gentle and they are respectful of women and they help women. His symbol is I think it's Theseus, the symbol for justice. The blind lady holding the scales. That's the symbol for justice. And he think of kind of like, have you guys see that movie? What was it called? You Were Never Here. You Were Never Really Here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, think of like he does that. He goes after kidnapped women and abducted girls and things like that, and goes in there usually with a hammer, and will unleash the beast on these people. And in some situations, will tie a blindfold around his eyes to keep himself from raging from what he sees. So he goes in there with smell alone.
No, So I got another question for the group. What kind of games do you plan on running in the upcoming year?
I want to. It's my friend's game who is like a complete like pirate enthusiast.
Mm-hmm.
He's really into like things like Game of Thrones, but he knows pirates to a T. Like he could go sailing right now and do everything. But he wants to run a pirate game where I get to be the captain. He's a Korax. His name is Captain Nox Draven. The Nox stands for obnoxious, and I want to have a mixed fare crew. So I want to have a Newisha. I got one of my friends who's already made a Newisha that's come on board. I have a Geta Fenris, who is an old kind of Viking, who's been around for a while, and my friend Katie said she's going to be playing a mermaid, actually. So we actually looked up the book in Changeling, and yeah, sure enough, there's a mermaid in Fae.
Cool.
But I just really want to be a Korax captain of a pirate ship who has absolutely no idea how to be a pirate, but thinks it sounds very fun.
That makes I can dig it.
How about you, Rurg?
Probably running the adventures from the Chicago by Night supplement, or not Chicago by Night. What the fuck was it?
Follow London.
No. There was one that actually has some has an adventure that takes place in Chicago, Indianapolis, and then Gary.
Oh yeah, Let the Streets Run Red.
That's it. Yes. for V5, and since I live in the area, I can flesh it out a little bit better.
Oh, okay. Nice.
I live in Texas, and I don't know if there's been any like systems set in there, but I think that there should be.
There's a play-by-post server that's set in there.
A what?
There's a play-by-post server that's set in there.
That sounds fun.
How about you, Brendan?
Oh, probably either start the like Kingdoms style game or a Cyberpunk / John Wick style. And I think I'm gonna just switch over from D20 to either D10, like World of Darkness, or maybe Call of Cthulhu.
Hey,
maybe
you want
both.
people for that, homie? I'll join you because that
Hey,
sounds
you got it.
super fun. I've been playing the crap out of Cyberpunk. I like it a lot. As soon as I started playing it, I was like, "Look, this game is great. I don't care what the bugs are. I don't care what people are saying. It's fun." But I think that the tabletop would be more fun.
Yeah, I tried to run a tabletop a couple years ago, but I just wasn't as experienced of a DM. Didn't quite know what I wanted to do with it, so it petered out. But like that's one of my favorite settings, so needs to be
Nice.
done at some point.
Cyberpunk really does need to be expanded upon. Like I watched, there's a 2-part documentary on YouTube right now that goes over the like history of Cyberpunk and how it was developed. I really recommend it. It was a really interesting watch.
Okay.
It also led me to find out that did you guys know that there was a Total Recall like TV show called
I did
like
not know
Total
that.
Recall 2070? It was
What?
really good. It was like more of like a sequel to like more of an expansion of the world of Blade
Recall.
Runner than Total Recall actually. Yeah, the
2070?
developers actually said it was more of an unofficial prequel to Blade Runner.
Okay.
And you can definitely tell, like, if you guys go watch it with that mindset, like, no, this isn't a Total Recall movie. This is a Blade Runner with Total Recall in the title. It's really interesting.
But nice. Very
That was
nice.
2070, right?
Yeah, Total Recall 2070.
Cool.
Very cool.
I think
Oh.
that the noir aspects of movies like that influenced World of Darkness to an extreme degree.
Oh yeah.
Like if you just look at like the concept of like just like the replicant of something that looks human but quite isn't and lacks empathy, and then we look at how vampires are handled in like the World of Darkness, like there's definitely some similarities, and I think that any good storyteller needs to have some of that noir appreciation. You guys know what I mean?
I think I know what
Oh,
you're getting at.
definitely.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I pull from different different sources. I have a couple sources I plan on pulling for the werewolf game, and since there's a chance you might be in that one, I will leave it at that. The games I plan on running is I'm going to continue the werewolf game till we reach the apocalyptic conclusion.
4 years from now.
2. And it's been going on for 2 years come May. No, longer. I have to check my notes. But we're almost 2 years on the podcast series since the podcast started partway through that game. But I do also plan on picking up and finishing the Vampire the Dark Ages game for all 2 of the fans of that who are probably listening to this. And I've been getting a real sword and sorcery bug. Like true low magic sword and sorcery. So I've been rereading old school essentials, dungeon crawl classics, and with Gen Con it looks like I'll be running more Conan for Modifius, which should be fun as hell. Conan's a fun system.
I've never heard of it.
It's
All of those sound super fun.
Old School Essentials is basically a retro clone to the Mulve basic D&D rules.
Like first edition?
Basic edition.
Wow. Neat.
And Very cool, and I really like how they package it because you can get a box set, and each book or each section is its own individual book. So you have the core rules, which tells you how the armor class stats and all that work. You have a genre rules, which contains all the character classes, a magic book that contains all the spells that you need for those classes, a treasure book, and a monster book. So the DM doesn't have to start passing around the books when people need them. They can pass out the books that people need when they need them. And others can look at other books.
Huh.
Dungeon Crawl Classics is a game I've talked up on GM Talks a few times, and it is a old school Renaissance game that is a D20. It doesn't use THAC0. It's a positive armor class game, and you start the game with between 3 to 5 level 0 characters who are just peasants. They get
Per player.
Yeah, per player. And they roll a single d4. That's their health. So they can start with just 1 HP. No armor, farming equipment, and 1 random item. And then you push them through an adventure called a funnel. And whoever comes out on the other side, it's congratulations, you're level 1.
Actually
What?
played in that system once. I was the only survivor as a jester.
Oh, that's amazing. Oh, it's so fun. Funnels are fun as hell. You find creative ways. Like one person, they were a farmer, so they made their pig go into individual rooms to try and trigger traps so none of them would die. And they got emotionally attached to the pig because it survived all the traps until the very end, and then it got into a fight with a acid ooze that just dissolved their pig, and they're just like, no, my pig. And it's a roll to cast game. So if you're a wizard, you roll, and if you fail the roll, you lose the spell for the day. If you succeed the roll, you get to keep it, and the higher you roll, the more powerful the spell is. Yeah, it's fun as hell. Like it is definitely like an over the top Gonzo style RPG.
I love Gonzo stuff.
So I highly recommend
Super
it.
interesting, though.
Yeah, it's
I
fun
would
as
play
hell.
a shepherd. Be like, look, man, I was just here minding my sheep, and
It's,
all of a sudden, I'm here.
Yep, it is. You roll your profession randomly. You roll all your stats in order randomly. So it's 3d6, that's your strength. 3d6, that's your agility. 3d6, that's your stamina. For everything.
Man,
And Conan
man,
is
there's
a...
actually,
Oh, go ahead.
I'm
Go ahead.
so sorry. I was going to say that reminds me. There's actually a roll system that I wanted to talk about, but if you want to finish your thought, please go ahead.
Oh, yeah, and then Conan's a 2d20 system. It's like a die pool system like World of Darkness, but it's also roll low. So you have... every skill falls under a specific attribute. Your attribute is rated usually between 6 and I think the highest you can get is 12 or 14. And then you have a skill that's rated between 0 and 5. And you add those together, and that's what you have to equal or get less on your d20 to count it as a success. And so if you have like melee 5, agility 10, you need a 15 or less to succeed. And that's how you count successes. And then you get there's 2 separate pools called Doom and Momentum. Momentum is something characters can generate. If they get more successes than they need, they've generated momentum, and they can either spend it immediately to get extra things happening, or they can put it in the community pool that caps at 10 momentum, and you can spend that momentum to add d20s to your pool to a maximum of 5 d20s. Or there's another pool called Doom that the storyteller can use, and that can add d20s to they spend that to add d20s to the enemy rolls, make the enemies break initiative order, or add random traps when things seem to be going too easy for the players. And players can gift the storyteller Doom to add dice to their pool so that they can do really well for something, but they know they got to pay it back later, so to speak.
It sounds like Cleave, the system.
Kind of, yeah.
It sounds like Super Cleave. That sounds cool. It makes sense for Conan, really.
But yeah, it's super fun. I really enjoy it. It's a very cinematic, very sword and sorcery style game.
Sounds neat.
But what was your thought on the die system? I'm sorry,
Oh,
cut you
it
off.
was this. This was just a system that one DM had me do, and like I've tried doing it with other systems, and like it doesn't work quite as well. But when you with D&D and Pathfinder, it worked great, and like I don't know why it is, but he said like he said this, and it's remained to be true. I don't know why, but anytime we use this roll system, the characters' stats come out the exact same way that they should be. And like that means that like you will have your low points and like things that you didn't know you were, and then you'll end up role playing it in a way that like yeah, of course you would have this low. And like so anyway, it goes like this. You literally just roll like I think it's a 4d6 or 3d6 up to the DM on how powerful you want to be. Drop the lowest, and you just go down the sheet like fit, strength, dex, con, wisdom, intelligence, right? Charisma, and you like leave them as they lay, and then you can switch one with another one, and then you can re-roll one. But other than that, you can't move them around. And for some reason, anytime we do that, characters' stats just come out the way they should be, like every time.
That sounds like it has a relatively high chance for super high stats, which I'm not against.
It has a. I mean, if you roll 4d6 and drop the lowest, yeah. But if you roll 3d6, drop the lowest, not really.
Okay.
One
I mean,
of
it's
my
all up to
favorites
the
is
DM on how you want to be, but
yeah.
yeah, no, there is. Yeah, I mean, there is a chance that you can get, an 18 and something right out, but
That's one of my
that is on the high end.
character I'm playing in the game I'm in right now. Is a dwarven fighter gunslinger that has 2 18s, 17, a 16, and 3 14s.
Did you roll
And-
those?
Yeah, that was just 3d6, I think.
Beautiful.
3 or 46 dropped the lowest. But like, I still like getting into trouble. Like he's almost died like 3 or 4 times just because it's we're in Cursive Strahd. It's pretty harsh, but more and more I like playing characters with detrimental stats just because the roleplay opportunities are there. Like I might be getting old, but like I have a lot
I
more
would
fun.
say that's brave.
Sometimes having terrible stats can just be such a wonderful role-playing opportunity as well.
Agreed.
Yeah, definitely.
And that is to say that having like really swell min-max stats is no guarantee of success. Like this character I'm playing now is not the most useful, but on another occasion I had a character with 2 5s that was the big bad guy for a group of friends, and I think he escaped. Like he didn't beat them, but it was in a 1-on-4 situation, and the stats didn't really come into it. He was a pretty powerful spellcaster, but with 5 constitution, it's not exactly what you want for your big bad evil guy.
Yeah.
I don't know. And there are times you get lucky.
Yeah, and I think also like the low stats are kind of fun, especially with those older style games. D&D, 5th, and Pathfinder to some degree, those they can feel a little awkward solely because so much does derive from those stats. That's why I've found that I've really liked a lot of the OSR games because you can have shitty stats, but because magical equipment plays into it so much more, and you actually just being clever as a player plays into it so much more, those negative stats don't feel like it's a hindrance to the group. They feel more like they could be really good role-playing opportunities.
Right.
I mean, we've all seen the fighter who's really good at hitting stuff. He's just real bad at judging what he should hit.
Yeah. And I like that, but so one of the things I kind of like about 5e and Pugmire as an extension of 5e is that you can get min and maxers playing with non-min and maxers, and while the min maxer is definitely going to be way more powerful than the non-min and maxer, the game, because it's so, I guess, simplistic, but that carries its own negative connotation. But because the rule systems are a lot simpler and there's not as much power creep or bloat, you end up in a place where the person who hasn't min-maxed, they don't feel completely useless running in a party with the min-maxer in 5e versus a Pathfinder or a 3.5 especially.
Yeah, no, was it old Pathfinder was definitely awful about if you weren't optimal, you were falling behind.
Yeah.
Especially, and was it organized play?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't do a whole lot of that, but I definitely noticed it.
I spent a lot of my time in organized play, and I'm really glad I kind of got away from it.
Oh, really? I don't know a lot of people who do organized play. What drove you away from it? Just the optimization part, or?
So, a lot of it was I never knew who was going to be at the table
Mm-hmm.
at any given time. Like, there were people who were great to play with. There were other people who were just, they would drag it down in new and creative ways.
Mm.
What is it? We had one of the people who would occasionally GM would bend the rules in his favor if he was GMing, but if he tried to make the same bend as a player, it wasn't happening. He was always frustrating.
That's never good.
There were people. You're more likely to run into people who won't read their sheet
Okay.
and don't know what they're able to do. It's just a lot of unknowns. You also don't know. Somebody might just not show up without saying anything,
Oh,
and suddenly your table's not running.
Oh.
No, that makes sense. Yeah, that's because one of the benefits to running for cons that I found, and I love running for cons, is that you do get a lot of new people, and they usually bring a lot of and that's different from organized play because organized play happens basically every week or every month, right? Am I correct
For
on
us, it was every 2 weeks.
every 2 weeks, yeah. So there's always an opportunity to come back. But if you're running for a con, people are more likely to show up for that game, especially because they're paying for it. And we had a lot of new people who'd never played a lot of the games I ran, and they star-eyed, ready to play. They're at Gen Con, right? I actually find that to be one of the more rewarding things about running for new people.
Also, once I stepped away and started running home games, I had a lot more freedom to myself as a GM.
That makes sense.
I could say, yeah, just whatever's first party, go for it. I don't care. I can balance around it.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
As opposed to the organized play where you're stuck with whatever the module has. So if you've got, 4 heavily optimized min-maxers in your table, that module's getting destroyed.
Yeah. No, that's fair. Since you're both Pathfinder players, have you guys, which means, generic fantasy games, which no shame in that, have you guys pulled any kind of exploration rules from other systems, like older versions of D&D and things like that, or do you focus on other aspects?
I've played a game where we went through 7 different versions of hell, and we went to different systems. We went to a purgatory from D&D. We went to not purgatory, but the other word that we would usually associate to it.
Limbo.
Limbo. Yeah. There's limbo. We went to the 7 stages of hell. We went through Dante's hell. It was a lot of different versions of hell that we fought and went through. It was very Dark Souls like. There was a lot of boss fights. It was really fun.
Okay.
I don't know if that is technically what you were talking about.
No, but that's fine. That's still cool info. For Pugmire, I pulled the basic rules, exploration rules. So triple your speed. That's how far you can get in an exploration turn, which takes a minute instead of 60 seconds. And so that's how you track time. And then every third round, you roll to see if there's a random encounter or not. And it makes it so that there's an actual time and a pace, and that means that their torches can run out, because torches actually do have a time limit written in the PHP, but no one's going to go, I guess it's been about blah, blah, blah. You have a set thing. So the exploration feels gamified just as much as combat or anything else.
gonna have to remember to lift those rules in the future.
Yeah, they're really nice rules, and so yeah, it's like, hey, this lasts for 5 hours. Well, okay, and then you can just break that down into however many exploration turns. But it also means that players are more cognizant of if they're resting in the dungeon or if they're going to try and make it back to the city, since it does make dungeon diving a little more of a resource management style of game.
You know, I've got a player in my game right now that plays a bard, and when they were talking about taking the risks of resting in a dungeon, he goes, "Let me introduce you to this magnificent mansion spell."
Yeah, and that's fair.
As far as random encounters go,
Exploration rolls. I've never played with those, but it sounds fun though.
Yeah, those were a big thing in basic D&D, and they were in the first edition of AD&D, from my recollection.
It reminds me of Zorks, or like that old school computer RPG game where you go this way, go that way. Reminds me of that.
It's a little bit like that, yeah. And then if you wanted the party to stay together, then they were limited by the slowest person in the group too.
As usual, it's always the bard.
And then when you rolled random encounters, you also had to roll for surprise on both sides. So both sides could actually be surprised on each other, where they'd crash into each other and be like, oh shit. With the exception of if the players had torches going. So a lot of groups, what they did in older games is the thief would trek up ahead in the darkness so that they weren't in the torchlight, and they'd keep their hand like on the wall and things like that while they checked for traps and things like that. Because if there's a light in a lightless dungeon, then there's no way you can be stealthy. But if you get surprise on the enemy monsters, that means you can extinguish your torches, wait, and then attack them, and then get your lights back on.
I mean, unless you have an elf in the party, then they have dark vision.
Yeah, I like how they explain that in older versions too. It's infravision, so it's like an infrared. So if there's anything written, they can't read.
That makes sense.
dark vision is
Now editions, it's dark vision, and everybody except for the humans gets dark vision.
And Dragonborn for reasons. Don't worry about it.
Right. And then you play the one character who has dark vision because he's like Riddick.
Yep. That's why I've always preferred. That's why I've started homebrewing that it is infravision, and I have actually homebrewed that it's low light vision for elves and half elves again. It's a little extra bookkeeping, but I think it adds a little more, really, So.
for me, dark vision is so common that you can't really use darkness as a device against your players.
You really can't anymore.
I had one occasion where the only person who didn't have dark vision was the Dragonborn, and they were going through like an Indiana Jones style obstacle area, and the group who had a torch lit for their own reasons got it far enough ahead of him on an obstacle that he could no longer see, and he nearly died. It was just half an hour of the Dragonborn tooling around while the rest of the party easily gets through an area.
That's
which
awful.
it was fun in its own way. Like, they enjoyed torturing each other, but I like those feelings. Like, if your humans are crossing a field and they decide to push through the night, and then the wolves start howling. I really like using those details, and it loses a bit of steam when no one's afraid of the dark.
Yeah, I agree with that.
It was just hard to be a adventurer who's afraid of the dark, Darkness, like one of my favorite vampires always says, I just don't understand how you all are complaining. Nighttime makes up half of all time, right?
No, I hear you. I also like going back and using some of that Gygaxian ecology. A lot of old adventures tried to create some sort of ecological sense somehow. They were still fucking random in places, but there were parts where it's like, this is here because of this. Like, these slave traders take the corpses and they throw them here, and so the characters would come across carrion crawlers who attack here, here, and here, and if they're in this zone, this zone, this zone, then add the carrion crawler onto the random encounter table and things like that. And I was like, oh, that's a cool little detail.
Huh. That kind of makes me wonder a question, like, not including yourselves, obviously, but what is the best thing you have seen a DM do for immersion for his players?
My
Like-
favorite example of that, I forget whether it was part of a larger adventure. Keegan was running it. It was the Tower of Shardor.
Yeah, it was a homebrew game, yeah.
We were seeking out a tower that only appeared at sundown and teleported around randomly. And as we're setting up camp, he described this gold dragon just flying like really high up in the sky, like 1,000 feet or more up. And it was just flying towards the sunset. And just the way the music hit and the entire mood was like, it wasn't, you have to worry about this random encounter as a level 2, like a colossal gold dragon. It was just, you watch this gold dragon float off into the night. That was choice.
Like Pokemon.
Yeah, it was exactly,
awesome.
exactly.
Like Pokemon. Yeah, that was awesome. It just fills you with wonder and boyhood spirit.
Yeah, it was one of the first, or it's one of the only random encounters I remember that wasn't a combat random encounter. And it was also just there, and it was, yeah, I like it. I like it a lot.
In the Warhammer 40k only war system, the DM, ST, whatever term they use for that one, decided to leave something around that would mutate one of our party members. And so eventually we can see one of our squad mates go up, start investigating it, start poking at the weird purple goo on the floor. And he describes claws bursting out from inside, tearing away the skin, growing, this, that, and the other. And as the fight's beginning, he describes an Astartes stepping in. And while he's going toe-to-toe with this creature that has replaced our squad mate, it is pushing him back. And he's describing each blow swing by swing.
Nice.
Nice.
That is always nice to have those good little details. I had I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, I went to Gen Con once, and shout out to my buddy Scott. He was running a werewolf game, and I got to play in, and it was a White Howler game. We all knew it was coming, but it's like these spirits are getting twisted and things like that, and I'm trying to explain to the elder, the sept, that it's the worm and things are going wrong, and she's like, no, it's just a worm spirit. We just need you to do this, and I'm like, and I'm getting real impassioned. I'm like, you are being arrogant, elder. And everyone else in the pack's just like, I don't know if you should have fucking said that.
Like
she
the
gets
final days of Krypton.
Yeah, and she's just like, and she's like, no. And so we do the whole thing. We do the whole adventure, and we come back. They're all spirals.
Of course.
And they crucify me while the others are getting dragged into the spiral. And that same elder comes out all spiraled out. And he comes up and he describes it as going, who's arrogant now? And it was just great. And it drew everyone in. And of course I replied with, well, clearly it's still you.
Never let the bad guys have the last word, kids. Never.
And then I got dragged in and became a spiral myself. It was a fun as hell game. It was one of my favorites to this day, of being able to play.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and shout out to my buddy Colin, who was one of the best DMs I've ever had down in Austin, Texas. And his like the upstairs to his apartment, right? His living room was almost pretty much dedicated to this, right? It was couches and chairs like surrounding like a table, right? And on this table, he also had a screen for the players to look at that he could control. He had his monitors that were set up as basically a DM screen. And he ran everything digitally to the coolest extent. There was like lights underneath the couches that made fog that could come out. He would play music and mood and setting and stuff that matched everything. And he had everything choreographed down to a T. It was like watching someone perform a play for you more than it was D&D, and like it was always just such a pleasure to be in any of his games. And I actually got to make one of my favorite characters who just started off as like an NPC that he had. That he's like, there's this guy. He was attacked by a ghost. I was like, that sounds like a cool backstory. I'll be him. And but yeah, shout out to him. You don't have to do all these extra things for your players, but when you do, it's nice to be appreciated, and he definitely did it. So shout out to him.
Nice. All right, gentlemen. We're going on for a bit. I want to thank you both for jumping on. It was a lot of fun being able to chat like this.
Yeah, I really liked it a lot. Hopefully, I was a fun guest. And
yeah. All right. And from us, I'm Keegan. Brennan, this was a bunch of gamers on GM Talks. You can find us on Facebook, Podbean, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, but you will never find me on Twitter. I find it a cesspool. Bye.